This is Fraud to Fearless,
where we inspire dreamers to overcome imposter syndrome, embrace their authentic selves, and learn how to harness your brand to build a path to success.
I'm Brooke.
And I'm Hayden, and we're your hosts.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Another super important topic, but I feel like in the previous 4 or 5 episodes, we've done a lot of parallel discussion around this topic today, but Brooke and I thought we've been getting a lot of feedback from those of you listening, and then also we really saw a need to do an entire episode on networking. So what to do, what not to do. Brooke and I will share our journey with networking, but it's such a crucial topic because, again, we think about the tools that we're starting to build together on this journey to fearless. We're defining our brand. We're learning about how to think about success and use our brand to drive that success. We're evaluating who we're spending our time with, right? We're really transitioning to this idea of a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, and then how to do this as an individual, but then also as a leader. But now it's, let's bring all of that together and think about, okay, how can we use that to network, to build relationships with individuals to get stuff done? So anyway, Brooke, I'm super pumped about the topic.
This is going to be great. Networking, in other words, how to genuinely connect with people. The purpose of life, the reason why we're here, all of the things, it's people make our life rich. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in. I love that you use genuine already. I mean, I imagine we're going to use that word a lot, but I think to start, I'll share my networking journey. So I don't think I ever did it, or at least knew how to until grad school. So going into, again, accounting undergrad, right? We would have big career fairs with the big four, and everyone wanted Deloitte and PwC, and man, I felt like a fraud at those. I had no skills. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know my brand. I didn't know how to sell myself. And so I generally just tried my best to connect, but I felt like I had no toolkit. And then one thing that I love about the Utah State MHR program is before you get in, you do an interview social day. So I really think the only reason I got in is because it was more than just a test score and grades and GPA. I got to show a little personality, and they're like, oh, let's let this geezer in. But big companies do hiring events where it's not just GPA, it's not just your resume. They'll generally fly you out, you interview with a whole bunch of people, they put you in a cocktail situation, a cocktail party situation, they put you in office hours situation. So it's, let's evaluate Hayden in 4 or 5 different events instead of just one-on-one in an interview. And so networking really is super versatile, and it can be very tricky if you don't know how to do it, which is why I think this topic is so important. But the program really taught me how to start. That's where I really felt like I started to build networking tools, where before, so we did the interview social day, and I felt like I survived and got in. And then a big thing that the program pushed us to do is the summer before we started grad school, they said, all right, you need to call 20 people that do HR for a career. Before you start, we want you to talk to 20 people. And I said, you know what? I'm going to double it. So I talked to 50 people, and I just reached out on LinkedIn, and I started kind of lower level, recently graduated, and I just talked to anyone that was willing to talk to me. And I think one thing that I did that really stood out is I took notes the whole time. And I think that was such a powerful way for me to just dive right in and like chip my tooth a little bit of, this is how to network. This is how these conversations go. Some were awesome and went an hour, And some I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to get off of this call. And that's going to happen, right? So networking, again, growth mindset. But I think as I've continued in my career, I've definitely developed in networking, and networking looks so many different ways. But that is my early introduction to my networking journey.
There's two parts in general to networking, right? You have to understand and be confident in who you are. And then there's these tools and strategies that you can use to be effective when you're talking to somebody else. Today, we're going to focus on the tools. It's not just about business cards. It's not just about having the best LinkedIn profile. It's not about all of the things that you know. It's completely different than that. You have to learn how to build real, authentic, and value-driven connections. So today, we are going to dive in to the Fraud to Fearless Playbook on what we've learned about networking, the do's and don'ts, the things that have worked for us, the things that have not worked for us, some stories of how we've failed, and some big wins. I love that first story. I will share an unexpected story that started out when I was being flown out to companies out of grad school. And I was so nervous. I knew it's like it's the feeling that you get before you play a game. If you're an athlete, you get excited, you know it's coming up. And I was so focused on, okay, once I get there, what am I going to do? And I remember sitting on the plane. I was in a Southwest flight and I wanted to take a nap. And I'm sitting in my own row, and two women come and ask if they can sit by me. And I said, sure, that's great. Now I'm just mentally preparing. I'm kind of in my own little world. They sit down and I really didn't want to talk to anybody. Like I know that may sound weird coming from me because I talk to people at the grocery store, but I really didn't want to talk to anybody. I was focused. I turn over I'm like, okay, I feel like I should talk to them. So I turn over and I start asking them where they're from. They say they're from San Antonio. I said, I'm applying for a job in San Antonio for this company. And one of the women says, I know somebody that works for the company. What job are you applying for? And I told her it was in HR. The person that she knew was working in HR too. And she said, here's her name. Just a simple, genuine connection, talking to somebody. Then I get to the interview, Hayden. I go through all of the stuff that day. Finally, the last interview, we got interviewed by two different groups of people. The first person comes to the room, calls my name. I go up to her and she introduces herself, and I stop and I look her in the eye. Guess who it was?
This lady.
It was literally this lady. It was the friend of the woman that I had met on the plane. And instantly I had this connection of, oh my goodness, I met so-and-so on the airplane. And so now she has a reference point to somebody that she knows. The people that you meet, the people that you talk to, just being a good person and saying hi can influence you for the better in every way.
If we think about that story, which is terrific, why is that so valuable? It's valuable because you have an instant connection. You have an instant break the ice dynamic where my wife and I, we were at a friend's, their little kid just turned 1. And so they had a 1-year-old birthday party. And I'm working the room, I'm trying to meet the family and stuff. And normally the hardest part of meeting someone new is that beginning where it's like, okay, I don't really know you. I don't really know why you're here. Are you family? Are you friends? What do you like? What should we talk about? That part is always the hardest. And so if there are ways that you can get an early connection to help break down that barrier and break the ice, that's super, super valuable. Brooke, I don't know if I've told you this story before, but your story made me remind me of a similar situation, but it didn't quite go as well.
Let's hear it.
But
Let's hear
I've
it.
yeah, I've talked about how when I was in grad school, I only got one offer. And as part of that offer, like Brooke, they flew us out to Washington, D.C. We literally have a museum across the street from the Capitol building. So again, only offer. And the fly out was to go and interview. So it was a day full of interviews and a tour of the museum. So the first day was like orientation of the 3 days. We toured the museum. We met with some of the leaders. We had a dinner, and I got a great idea that night. And I was like,
Oh
whatever
no.
I can do to break the ice, I was going to do it. And there's a lot of pressure because like Brooke, in your example, it's when you get flown out to one of these big company events, there's really no way to prep for that. I mean, the program did really good prepping us with interview social days, but the lights are a little brighter when it's real, right? And so it's day one, and I'm like, this hotel has a bar. And it was a huge hotel. And I was like, I imagine all of the crew that's here to interview is probably at dinner downstairs at the bar. And so I dragged one of our classmates, Brooke, who was with me, and I was like, here's an idea. Let's go down and have a drink
Oh
and
no. Oh
see if
no.
they're there. We sit down and it's like a Thursday night. So Thursday night football's on and they are all there, Brooke.
You're
Everyone is
kidding.
at the table. No. And I thought, this is awesome. Maybe we can go and like talk to them. So anyway, one of the alumni from our school gave me some feedback that it's like, hey, it's kind of a little awkward that you guys are here. So I ended up leaving, but I'm really glad that I did that because I put myself out there. I tried to make a connection. I interviewed with 3 of the folks that day. So I only had one drink. Okay. So Hayden was fresh and ready to go the next day. Um, but I think there's a couple of examples of, I think being kind in every aspect of your day and being genuine and authentic. There's a metaphor that maybe isn't sticking out there that it's like, you're always being watched. The interview is not the only time you're being interviewed. It's not just, yeah, be really cool in the interview. It's, are you a genuine person and do you treat people well? I think that's as we transition now to start talking about big like do's, like what should we do? What does good look like? We've said being genuine and authentic. That's a big one. But I also really love this idea of people can tell when you fake it. And if you fake it, eventually you're going to find somebody who is either has a friend that works for this company or you're going to get to the bar where all of the interviewers are sitting there. Like if you're faking it, eventually people are going to find that out. And people in general don't like being used and feeling used. So I think those are a couple big do's for networking. Brooke, what are some of your like favorite do's when we think about networking?
Well, first I'm thinking for the people listening, I'm sure that it's like, okay, I don't want to be fake. And also, I don't necessarily love talking to people in the grocery store like you and Hayden. How do I still be genuine and authentic when it's not easy for me to just go up and talk to random people all the time?
Yeah.
So that's the piece that I want to kind of dive into of like, how do you actually foster connection? Can you be an introvert and still be really, really good at networking? Do you have to be an extrovert to be good at connecting with people? And the myth that I want to bust through is you can be good at networking regardless of your personality, regardless of your energy level, or if you like talking to people at Walmart, you can be an amazing interviewer. So, can we just dive into and explore like how do you connect with somebody? What creates a good connection? I think a good place to start would be how do I like being connected with, or what helps me feel seen,
Yeah.
valued, important, to somebody else, for me, and then I'd love to see what your response is, something that helps me feel seen, valued, and important would be when people ask questions, but genuine questions. They really want to know me, about me. They're interested. You can tell, like you said, you can tell when someone's actually interested in you with how their body language is, how they're looking at you, if they're fully present in the moment versus if they're just asking questions to get to the next thing.
A quote that I love that is highlighting what you're talking about is people generally don't remember what you said. They remember how you make them feel. And a big way that I like to feel cared about and this genuine, authentic, when folks are trying to reach out to me, when they remember. And this is where I think we talked about notes. So full transparency, I actually hate the concept and the term networking. I feel like networking as a definition, it feels transaction. It feels forced. It feels like one person is trying to take something from the other. And what's interesting about my journey with networking is when I started, I very much was trying to get stuff from people because I knew nothing, right? So I'm trying to gain knowledge, but I didn't only think about it that way. I didn't think about, okay, Hayden needs to call 20 people. He's going to call 50. Okay, so let me call 50 people and then I'm done, right? I doubled what I was supposed to do. It's I need to get knowledge from them, but they just met me. How can I make this call valuable for them too, even though I'm asking them questions? People love talking about themselves, okay? So even me reaching out and asking them to talk about their day, the person on the phone maybe never does phone calls like that. So me asking those questions is actually adding value to the person that's a mentor in this situation because it's making them reflect on their job. They're now connecting with me. We both grew our network by one person, but then taking those notes in the US, my experience has been our culture is, hey, Brooke, how you doing? Good. How are you? Good. All right, let's go. Instead of, Brooke, do you have any fun plans this weekend? Like, oh, it just snowed a whole bunch in Utah. Are you a big skier? It doesn't have to be 5 minutes, but when you tell me that stuff, Brooke, if I write that down in my notes, if I remember it, then the next time we talk, it's, okay, you said last time that you're signing up for this triathlon. Gee, that doesn't sound like fun, but I'm really proud of you for doing it. I think that's a huge piece of how I feel celebrated and loved.
We hear this a lot in networking recommendations and books and podcasts, like make it about service. Don't make it about getting something. But what's the reality? Like the reason why we're reaching out to people is because we want to learn something from them. It's okay to own that. It's okay to say, look, I'm interested in getting a job at the X, Y, and Z company. So I want to know if it's a good fit. It's okay to own that piece.
Yeah.
And we just have to recognize that. There's not a way to twist it somehow to figure out, like, how can I make this seem like I'm serving them? But we can come from a place internally that's genuine in our request. So I have an example about this. When I had quit my job in corporate America and I heard about a leadership conference that was going on at BYU, a university here in Utah. And I thought, I love this stuff. I would love to go to that. I looked at all the speakers. I found a speaker that I was interested in, and I went to go sit in her class. And that speech moved me. It was incredible. This woman spoke with power and purpose. And after that meeting, I thought, that woman's supposed to be a part of my life. I want to learn from her. So I had a decision. Should I There's a huge long line of people talking to the speaker. I thought, should I go up and talk to her? So that's what I did. I stood in line, I waited my turn, and when I got up to the front, I was very direct and I said, you know what? This is going to sound pretty bold, but I know that I was supposed to meet you today, and I would love to learn from you. Is there a way that I can connect with you? Do you have a LinkedIn? I didn't know what to ask. Like, I was like, should I ask for her number? But I was just honest with my intent. I just thought, I genuinely want to get to know you. What you shared today inspired me. It resonates with me. I want to know you. Can I do that? And she could feel my intent. I could tell that she felt something. She even asked to get a picture with me because it was like this instant connection. So it's okay to state this. Look, I'm super interested in your company. I'm super interested in what you do. I would love to speak with you about that, and being honest up front.
The best networkers don't wait for opportunities. They create them. You created that opportunity. I also feel that was probably you probably were very anxious and nervous. It's never fun to wait in a line and feel like you're being herded to talk to another human being. But that template of what you just said, the genuine authenticity, but networking it is almost never one-sided. Almost never. If both folks in the discussion have pure intentions and are thinking about ways that they can serve each other. I had a CFO that was a huge influence in my career, and he would talk to large groups all the time, and I would love every time I got to listen to him speak. And he said, at work, we all forget that the whole reason we are here is to serve others. And that quote just stuck with me. If both parties in the networking conversation have pure intentions, are looking for ways to serve each other, then the whole reason we do this is when we solve problems by ourselves, it takes longer every time. If you have other people that you ask for help and you build your network and use your connections to solve problems, we can all solve that problem together and get to a solution quicker. That's the whole point of networking, because there are other people that know how to do this better than me, and I know how to do things better than them. So let me reach out to them, build that relationship, and then we can help each other. So, but this idea of the people that are best at this don't just wait. You got to hustle, man. You got to be a hunter. You create that opportunity. You could have very easily left that lecture and let me send her an email. And how many emails does she get a day? So I love that example and that takeaway of you didn't wait, even waiting in line one after the other. You use such a powerful, by just being honest. You didn't have to have the perfect, sales pitch. You just had to be honest about your intentions, and it worked. Powerful example.
Let's go back into this original question that you mentioned at the beginning, the do's and don'ts, and get some actual tools that help. You're face to face with the person that you want to network with. You are about to get on a call with them. What do you do? What are some of the things that have worked for us, and maybe some of the things that haven't? One thing that is important that I am horrible at, Hayden, is remember, like you talked about remembering, but especially remembering names. It's really hard, but people, they like hearing their own name, and it helps you stay present in the moment, and it helps them understand, okay, I matter to this person.
One of my do's is listen more than you speak. It can be very easy to not listen to anything that they're saying and think about what you're going to say next. I love how you talked about introvert, extrovert, and I don't necessarily consider myself an extrovert. When I have a big social gathering, I can enjoy it and I can feed off of energy of others, but normally when I am at a large party or meeting people I've never met before, when I'm done, I'm pretty exhausted. I want to sit on the couch and I need to decompress after. I don't leave that and feel, oh my gosh, I have so much joy. But so I think for introverted folks where networking or being in large groups of people is not as natural, there can be more of a desire to have a crutch leaning on, let me have the next, like taking a ticket at like the deli or whatever. Like, let me take and bank the next question so that when they're done talking, I know what I'm going to say next. But you miss what they're saying. Again, thinking about serving people. So one of my don'ts is, or be aware of is, if you're in a conversation with someone and you're not actually listening to what they say, then you need to refocus. There's a home base that you think about to get your mind recentered. That picture is what you should use when you're networking. What's your home base? If you're noticing that when you're networking, what am I going to ask next? Home base needs to be, I need to listen to what Brooke's saying, turn the rest of my mind off. And then even if I have to pause a little bit to ask the next question, that is okay.
Showing a little glimpse of your personality at the beginning so that they can see, okay, they're going to make me feel comfortable. Like we're here to be friends. That's what I wanted. Oh, this is the part that I wanted to mention.
This is good.
This is so good. If you can go into every networking opportunity or anyone that you're going to meet and treat them as if they are going to become or are your best friend. If you think about how you talk to your best friend or the people that are closest to you, what is your energy level? What is your tone of voice? What do you do? How do you act? What is that like? How do things change? There's a whole different feeling, right? So if you can go into that saying, this person, we're going to be friends. And so this is how I'm going to show up. It feels so good. And they can feel that energy, and it changes the dynamics, because when somebody else is showing up that way, it gives them permission to also open up and be that way too.
If you're listening right now, Brooke's energy is contagious. So even if you just rewind a minute and listen to that again, imagine if that person came up to you and started talking to you at a conference and was the 50th person that you met with. Wouldn't you remember the energy, right? So having fun. If you go into this thinking I'm about to meet a friend, you're probably a lot more likely to sound like Brooke just sounded. And I imagine if you were on the receiving end of that energy and that communication style, you remember that. Again, it's not what you said, it's how you made me feel, and that energy is contagious.
So Tony Robbins was one of the speakers at this conference that I went to in Vegas. And he had us all do an exercise of your presence, how you show up with people. But one of the things that he would have us act out these different things, low energy versus high energy. And one of the things that he asked us to do was go and meet 3 people and act as if they are your best friend or like the love of your life, and you haven't seen them in 3 years. And how would you be acting? And what would you say and what would you do? And so we went up to these random strangers and we're like hugging them and like, how are you? And there was this one guy that I go up to. We've never met, right? But we're both just like freaking out, like, oh my goodness, how are you? And then we both start laughing. And it was just like, wow, you can feel the difference. It was so great. So this is not just random stuff that we're making up. When you try it, you'll notice the difference. But these are the things that the top business professionals in the world are teaching individuals day in and day out. Your energy, the way that you show up, really does people feed off of that. So I wanted to dive in a little bit more to this question asking thing, because this is a tool that it's something that you have to exercise. It's a tool that if you learn, you will become a master networker, a master connector, your relationships in all aspects of your life will be changed, not just professionally, but personally. So it's something that you have to practice. If you're saying, oh, I'm just not good at this, you're in luck. All you literally have to do is practice. Here's the invitation, okay? To become a master question asker, like Hayden mentioned, you cannot have something else in your mind when we're nervous or we want to have a bank of questions. We don't want it to feel awkward, that awkward pause. Because if there's an awkward pause, then it's going to feel weird. And then they're going to remember that. And then I'm going to fail and so on and so forth. If you are genuinely in the moment and you are so focused on what they're saying, who they are, and asking questions directly based off of what they said, then you will always have something to say. Now, don't have your first time of practicing this be at a huge flying out to a corporate event. Practice this in your everyday life. Have maybe a goal of, okay, today I'm going to have one person that I talk to, and I'm only going to ask questions. I'm only going to ask questions the whole time. I'm going to have no game plan. I'm just only going to ask questions and see how it turns out. Find ways to exercise this muscle. Maybe it's with your spouse. Maybe it's with your children. Maybe it's with your coworker at work. Practice asking questions without a plan. If you can do that and trust yourself, it will always come. The next question will always come. And people feel that, wow, you're really interested in me. And they'll remember that.
Asking powerful questions, being genuine and authentic. One, that's the base of everything we're going to try and talk about on this podcast. Two, probably the biggest thing is asking powerful questions. Asking questions sounds so easy and simple, and it feels like a fundamental building block of being a human, but it can actually be very intimidating. Asking a question in a class or asking a question when someone spoke to a large group, being the one person out of 150 people to talk, and now I have all the attention, I'm asking the question, still to this day is something I do not enjoy doing. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself in asking this perfect question that I know every single bit of knowledge that the person presenting knows, and I use that knowledge to ask them a question that is the best question. And also, like, look, I work in HR. I hire very big leaders that are the best in their industry, and I interview them, and I have to ask them questions. And that's been a journey where it's like, for a while, I struggled with that of, what do I ask? Are they going to think I'm a fraud if I ask the wrong question? And lately, I've been reflecting on this, and actually asking questions can be very simple. And it doesn't need to be this super complicated question. It can be a very basic question like, what is the biggest challenge you're experiencing at work right now? What is, when you think about your career, what was the hardest thing that you didn't think you were going to get through, and how did you overcome it? What are you most proud of? Those three questions are very easy, but they get very detailed answers that probably bring up emotions and reminiscing. And I think, to your point, Brooke, that I really love is practice. If you have that fixed mindset lens that you are not great at networking, you are not great at asking questions, how are you going to get better? If you want to be a great networker, talk to people that are really good at this. So, Brooke, we've referenced the conference a lot. You went to Vegas, you went to some super awesome ClickFunnels conference with influencers and podcasters and social media people. Tony Robbins was there. I think most people listening probably know who that is. Give us a story or two and your reflections on how you used networking at this conference, because this is big time.
Those conferences, they pump me up. They pump me up because of the opportunity. And you always hear that your network is your net worth. You know, the people that you know and connect with genuinely will change the trajectory of your life because of the experiences, the things that they've done. the people that you surround yourself with is who you become like. And so it gets me so excited because I think if I want to be doing the things that these people are doing, then I'm putting myself in a situation where I get to learn from them and then meet them. So that was my goal. Honestly, before networking events or when I'm going to meet with someone, I have a prayer in my heart that I will be able to connect with the people that I need to learn from in my life, and that I will be able to meet people and share the things that I need to share that they may need to hear. And that's my only desire, is just I want to be able to learn the things that I need to learn to become the person that I'm supposed to be and want to be, and share things with other people that could influence their life for the better. So that was my prayer going into this. And then you have to take action, right? So you're going to put yourself into these situations. After the conference, there was kind of this general open area where sometimes the speakers would go out and there would be lines for people to wait in line and meet with them. And then there's also lots of entrepreneurs that were just waiting there that didn't necessarily speak, but were waiting to go into the conference. So I took every opportunity to just talk with people. I met so many incredible people. I met music artists. I met people with huge followings on social media that have been doing the business for years. Each of those interactions blessed my life. So my goal in meeting some of these famous people, thinking, okay, what am I going to say to them? How can I add value to them? They're talking to so many people, person after person, person after person. And my whole intent was to somehow bless their life. What can I say that is genuine? What did I learn from them? So I think back on their speech. I think back on something that I learned from them, either from social media or reading their book or whatever it was. And I would tell them how much that meant to me and how it impacted my life. Now, I don't know if these people are going to remember me, but I know that that would matter to me if somebody said that to me. So that's how I was trying to network at the event.
I want to double click on something that you said that I think is really important. And when I've talked with students and professionals early mid-career that have been struggling with recruiting and networking, I've used the Olympics as a metaphor. I feel like networking is like an Olympic event. Let's take gymnastics. Normally, every gymnast has their event, whether it's like uneven bar or it's floor or whatever. And whoever gets the gold doesn't necessarily the best at every single event. And I think that metaphor is very powerful when we think about introverted, extroverted. There are things that naturally come easy to us. So again, we talked about earlier in this episode what interview social day looks like, or when these big companies fly you out, they're putting you in so many different situations. Olympics. So generally, my event, if you will, the Hayden event, is small groups of people. I'm at my best when there's not 20 people in a circle huddled trying to talk to one. I'm at my best when I create small, intimate settings with a smaller group of people, either one-on-one or less than 5 people. Brooke and I were talking about this conference, and she said there was one individual she was talking to that essentially told her that they didn't get much value from the conference. And Brooke's like, what do you mean? I've met so many people, but if you're listening to this and you're like, look, I'm going to these MBA conferences, or I'm going to these recruiting events, or I go to these companies' cocktail hours, and I don't really feel like I get anything from it, so I just won't go anymore. What's your event? Where do you feel like you're most comfortable networking with folks? And how can you create that event? Again, one of the first things we said is the best networkers don't wait for networking opportunities. They create them. Create your event, whether it's small groups, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's you with an ally, like a friend going and talking to someone with somebody that you know. Whatever your event is, how can you create that, even if the environment doesn't necessarily create that for you? Don't say I'm a bad networker. false challenge. I'll push back on that any day. There's got to be one event that includes networking that you're good at. Figure out what that is, and then try to find ways to create that as much as possible, whether you're in Vegas with Tony Robbins or you're at a company cocktail hour.
Okay, you can be afraid, but stand in the reality of what you want and ask for it. Because whether you ask for it, you don't, the worst case scenario is you aren't going to get it. And you weren't going to get it anyways if you didn't ask. So be bold and ask. As you were speaking, I thought, you know what? A lot of times we have this focus, especially if you're a college student and you're networking to find your first job. But after college, if you're in your career or you're wanting to start a side hustle or whatever it is, who are the people that you would love to talk to that are already doing the thing that you want to do? And can you just reach out to them, send them a message on LinkedIn, or if there's a connection or somebody that knows them that you know, and say, hey, I would love to talk to you. I've always wanted to start a business, or I've always been interested in that kind of career, or someone in your organization that is an executive or whoever else. You know, I really admire your leadership qualities and capabilities. Can we go to lunch? I would love to get to know you and the reason why. And just try. Just find somebody that you'd love to get to know and just try.
What's the worst thing that can happen? They say no. That's it. And if you ask 5 people, one of them's going to say yes. So again, growth mindset. I think as we look to wrap up here, Brooke and I want to share a cheat code. The last thing is a cheat code. Follow up. Follow up. So if 50 people, in Brooke's example where she met this speaker at BYU and 50 people go, not everyone is following up after. But if Brooke meets this person, is genuine and authentic, connects, looks to serve, and then follows up with a message, or it could even be a connection on LinkedIn. Let's say you're working for a company and you meet someone at the airport or someone on your flight and you start talking. The world's actually much smaller than we think sometimes. And you meet someone that does what you or something similar to you at another company. Reach out on LinkedIn. You just built your network. You had a great conversation on the flight. Follow up is so, so important because it shows that you care. It adds to that genuine authenticity. And then I really love this idea of networking should not only be one conversation. When I had my 50 conversations before grad school in the summer, if ever there was a good one, I was like, you know what? I really just loved talking to this person. Man, it would be a shame if that was the only time. I need to talk to this person again. And then I followed up, and in that follow-up, I'd love to keep the conversation going. This is how I have found mentors for myself at my company, is I've been introduced to big leaders that are super busy and have so many meetings. But if we connect and have a good conversation, hey, I know you've got a lot going on. I had a really great conversation. I want to learn from you and keep the dialogue going. Would you be okay if I put 30 minutes on your calendar once a month or every other month, and we just keep this conversation going? As long as that time is valuable, that's not networking. That's relationship building.
Don't take for granted the advantage of following up. It will change everything for you. Whether that's a note that you write to someone, I've seen such creative things with the follow-up. It can be a handwritten note. It can be an email, a message on LinkedIn. It can be a voice memo message. It can be a video message. Those things you'll be remembered by.
As we wrap it up here, we've got a couple of takeaways just from a networking perspective. Mastering rapport, right? So again, people don't remember what we say. They remember how we make them feel. And so making people feel seen and heard, actually listen, asking powerful questions, that adds to this being genuine and authentic, which is super powerful. The cheat code of today is following up, and follow up relentlessly. Networking is not a to-do item. It's really a lifestyle that we're all going to do throughout our lives. It wasn't going into grad school, they didn't ask Hayden to connect with 20 people to get the action done. It was to start my networking journey and practice, because Hayden's going to be networking the rest of his life, just like all of you. So if this is something that you're not comfortable with, you haven't thought about, get used to it, because this, again, it's not an action, it's not an activity, it's a lifestyle that we are all going to do. As you go through this, I would think about your event, one, and how you can create that event in different networking environments. And then two, pick one person that you could benefit from. One name. It could be someone that's in your dream job. Pick one person, just one person, and send them a note tonight. Send them a note, reach out, use the tools that we talked about. It can be on LinkedIn, text, email, I don't care. One name, and do the tools and the applications. It could be someone at your company, someone not at your company, I don't care. Send one note to try and practice these things, and then let us know how it goes. Brooke and I will respond to every single message that Fraud to Fearless gets, and we love to hear your feedback. So those are my two call to actions for everyone listening.
All right, Hayden, I would say my biggest takeaway and invitation is practice, practice, practice. Practice at the grocery store. Practice with your spouse. Practice with your children. Give yourself opportunities to connect with people. Use the Sharon Giles framework and see everybody as a mentor, somebody to learn from, somebody that you can be a gift to, and you will be surprised who gets put in your path. People will come into your life that you're supposed to meet and that you're supposed to bless.
Do it. Take action. Let's get better together. Again, networking, it's not an activity. It's not a one-time thing. It's a lifestyle. Let's get better together. All right, everyone. For now, that's the pot.